Let's take a closer look at the cool dynamic between Gwen from the Spider-Verse movies and her mentor Jessica Drew. Miles already has his own mentor, Peter B. Parker, but Gwen has found her own in Jessica. So, in this video, let's explore their relationship as mentor and student. One thing we know about Gwen is that she didn't have a mom for much of her life. Her mom passed away when she was really young, so she's never experienced what it's like to have a mother figure in her life. She only has her dad, which is why finding a figure like Jessica is really significant for her. The first time Gwen met Jessica Drew, it was quite an unforgettable moment. She came into her universe in a totally awesome way, riding a motorcycle and kicking butt. Gwen was completely dazzled by her. Seeing a Spider-Woman with so much more experience, skill, and confidence was a real inspiration for her. In fact, she was so impressed that she even joked about wanting Jessica to adopt her.
Will you adopt me? What?
And it wasn't just any ordinary appearance. Jessica was pregnant, which made her even more impressive to Gwen. The idea of a pregnant Spider-Woman riding around on a motorcycle and fighting bad guys was enough to make Gwen look up to her as a role model right away. As things got tough, especially when Gwen's father found out about her secret identity and was willing to arrest her, Gwen was really heartbroken and didn't know what to do. It was around this time that Miguel was about to leave her universe. However, Jessica was there to convince Miguel to let her join their group, the Spider Society. Initially, Miguel wasn't too keen on the idea because of how close Gwen was to Miles, but eventually, he agreed.
Well, join the club.
That moment marked the beginning of the mentor-student relationship between Jessica and Gwen. We don't really know many details about Gwen's interactions with the other Spider people during her initial time in the Spider Society, but it seems like she generally got along with them. What we do know is that Jessica was always there for her, offering support and guidance whenever she needed it. But there was one potential issue that could have caused problems: Gwen's feelings for Miles. She had joined the Spider Society partly because she thought it would be a way to see him again. She had been really looking forward to visiting his universe, but unfortunately, she wasn't allowed to do so. Jessica understood how much Miles meant to her, but she advised her to keep a safe distance. If Gwen got too close to Miles, it could lead to trouble with Miguel. Jessica was careful to avoid any actions that might upset Miguel, because if she did, there was a risk she could be kicked out of the group. So, Jessica always tried to have Gwen's back and protect her when she messed up. As it turned out, Gwen did end up making a mistake. Jessica had entrusted her with a mission to monitor the spot in Miles's universe, but Gwen just couldn't resist the urge to see him. She ended up ignoring her mission entirely because the thought of being in his universe without being able to see him was too much to bear. During their little spider date swinging through the city, it was clear how happy Gwen was when talking about her experiences, especially her interactions with Jessica. Gwen mentioned that she had learned a lot from her, although the movie didn't show us those moments specifically. When Gwen messed up with her mission, Jessica was there to cover for her, promising not to tell Miguel anything about what had happened. Gwen was walking a tight line in the Spider Society. Any small mistake could get her into trouble. If she got kicked out, she would have to face the problems she had run away from in her own universe, like dealing with her father, which was something she was always trying to avoid. When Miles decided to go to the Spider Society's headquarters, things started to get complicated. Gwen found herself in a tough spot, torn between supporting Miles and staying loyal to the Spider Society and Jessica. At first, she was on the Society's side because she believed it was the right thing to do, mainly due to Jessica's advice. Even though Gwen's instincts were telling her otherwise, she initially agreed to follow Jessica's lead and try to capture Miles. However, she wasn't really trying to catch him. Instead, she was more like going through the motions, which allowed Miles to eventually escape. What really made Gwen mad was the way Miguel treated Miles. She couldn't stand it, and for the first time, she spoke up against him.
All he had to do was listen. Why didn't he listen?
Maybe you weren't hard enough on him.
Gwen, don't do it.
This was something Jessica had warned her against, as it could result in her being kicked out of the Spider Society, which ultimately happened. Before sending Gwen back to her universe, Miguel made a comment that was pretty revealing. He told Jessica, I told you she was a liability, implying that he had always seen Gwen as a risk.
I told you she was a liability.
It seems like Miguel didn't trust her from the start, probably because he knew that if things went down with Miles, Gwen might not follow through and do what the society asked of her. And that's exactly what happened. When Gwen realized she was in trouble and thought she needed help, she tried to reach out to Jessica for backup. But what happened next was unexpected. Jessica essentially agreed with Miguel, saying that he was right about Gwen being a liability. This was surprising, given how close Jessica had been to Gwen and how she had always supported her. For the first time, she didn't act to help Gwen. Instead, she seemed to let things unfold without intervening. She basically told Gwen that if she couldn't bring herself to follow through on the society's orders and capture Miles, then there was nothing she could do about it. And that's exactly what happened. Miles managed to escape. Before Gwen was sent back to her universe, she said something that resonated deeply with everyone in the Spider Society. She pointed out that they were supposed to be the good guys, which made them all reflect on their actions.
We are supposed to be the good guys.
This moment was evident on Jessica Drew's face, as it clearly affected her. Getting kicked out of the Spider Society actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise for Gwen. In the society, she wasn't being her true self. She was excited to be around other spider people who understood her, but she couldn't do the things she wanted, like seeing Miles. She was forced to choose between her loyalty to the Spider Society and her connection to Miles. In the end, Gwen lost both, her mentor, as Jessica didn't stand up for her when she was kicked out, and Miles, who felt betrayed by her actions. However, she managed to mend things with her father, and she was lucky that Hobie left a traveling watch in her universe, which allowed her to travel to Miles's universe and try to fix the issues between them. During Gwen's conversation with Miles's parents, Jessica was watching her from a distance, listening to everything she said about how much she had learned from Miles and how much he cared for them. There was a noticeable shift in Jessica's expression. Instead of intervening when Gwen decided to go find backup and form her own team to rescue Miles, Jessica just stood there, watching her with a look of pride. This moment suggested that she might switch sides and support Gwen in the future. This could set up an interesting dynamic where Jessica may side with Gwen in upcoming events. It seems likely that Gwen will feel unhappy about seeing her again if their paths cross, given her feelings of betrayal from earlier. However, from the prideful look on Jessica's face, it seemed like she was viewing Gwen as a successful student. Their next interaction will be fascinating, especially if she does decide to support Gwen. It's difficult to imagine Jessica abandoning her loyalty to the Spider Society and Miguel, but Gwen means a lot to her. It's almost like she's a daughter to her. This uncertainty makes it exciting to see how things will unfold.